for the night is dark and full of wigglers. The first half of Metro is packed with RNG, well, in SMO terms. If you want to know how to deal with it and some other stuff in this kingdom, this is the right video for you. I'm Danster and this is Change of Pace for Night Metro.
Climbing out of the trenches, reaching for higher heights.
Chasing me along, all I want is you when we was chasing time.
Well, I am the boss, I am the Don, I am the one they call.
I ain't got much to explain though, but then I was running for bangos. I was the minimum wage though.
If you haven't watched the introduction video, make sure to check it out to understand how this series works. As a quick summary, there will be different strats for different skill levels. The lower ones will be the base for the higher ones. If you're feeling confident though that you already know the strats for a pace, feel free to check the timestamps to find the skill level that fits you best. Now, let's get moving.
I'm just a kid with a glimmer of hope. I'm just a kid with a kid and potential to glow.
The first pace is for people with a PB of 104 or 105, and the strats we'll be looking at will help you to bring your sum of best down to around 103 flat. Right at the start, there is actually a trick that you can do with the camera to give you an easier time. When you arrive in Metro, keep pushing the right stick to the right and also hold that direction when skipping through the final cutscene and the dialogue afterwards. There are different ways of doing that, but the most natural is probably pushing the stick with your left thumb while skipping the cutscene and mashing with your right one. Now, you should be able to adjust your camera after the dialogue has ended. Turn it so it is facing the ramp. This will make it easier to roll onto it. Now, roll boost 3 times and do a triple jump. Land on the girder and keep jumping to get another triple jump towards the pylon. Then spin throw to capture it and dive forward. The dive can save a little bit of time and also ensures you don't fall down in case you don't capture the pylon somehow. Now, keep rolling towards the awning and stop roll boosting shortly before the fence ends. Run a few steps and jump once you leave the street. Then dive onto the right side of the awning. Obviously, the next part is all about gaining as much height as possible. So for the awning bounce, there are 2 things to pay attention to. First, try to land on the awning as high up as possible, so close to the wall. Then make sure you wait with the cap throw until you reach the peak of the bounce. By maximizing your height doing these 2 things, you will have a way easier time for the rest of the trick. You can even tighten up some inputs then, but for now we're not going to do that. Cap throw, wait for Mario to do a full spin, then cap dive and hold neutral for the bounce. Wait to reach the peak, then cap stall, wall jump and, once again at the peak, cap throw and dive on top. By doing all of that, you should have more than enough height. Now jump, cap dive and try to aim for the far right side of this platform. Then ground pound jump close to the edge. Cap dive, wall jump, then cap throw and dive on top. Turn right and long jump towards the moon and jump into it. If your long jump doesn't reach to the other side, do a cap throw and dive into the moon when you're close. This part is about the right timing as you can easily bonk and fall down if you dive too early, so make sure to get used to the right height. Jump, cap dive and hold neutral for the bounce, then cap throw and dive on top. Jump onto the higher part, then long jump. Delay for a bit and cap dive and dive to the other side. Roll boost towards the pylon and roll cancel into it. Dive and do 1 roll boost, then keep your momentum, jump and do a double jump off the girder. Dive and roll towards the entrance and roll cancel into it. City Hall can be very punishing if you make mistakes, so be comfortable with the strats you use and practice them from time to time. For this strat, we are trying to catch a cycle. Jump and dive, then space out a triple jump so you get it close to the edge of the wooden floor. Cap throw and dive after a full spin, then cap stall. You can aim for this line on the wall when you're approaching it to make sure you're in the right position. Wall jump, cap throw and dive. Then jump and dive onto the platform. If there is a Goomba there, kill it with a cap throw. Now face away from the wall and once the platform reaches the top, backflip, wall jump, cap throw and dive onto the pole. Usually that should set you up to be at the right height, so you can now turn right towards the wall and just keep pressing the jump button while holding neutral to get all the way to the second pole. There is a trick though to adjust your height in case you feel like you're too low when landing on the pole. Hold up on the left stick and Mario will go a tiny bit higher with every jump off the pole. That way you don't lose time like you normally would when adjusting the height by climbing. Just make sure you stop holding up when you're close to the top, otherwise Mario could go into a handstand position which will lose you time. You can also do a mixture of holding up and neutral. A good way of measuring your height is the coin that you grab in the beginning. If you grab the coin high, you should hold neutral all the time. If you grab it low, you should hold up for at least a few jumps. If you land slightly below it, keep holding up. Usually you should not land any lower, but if that happens, you have to adjust by climbing the pole. Once you're on the second pole, do another 2 wall jumps, then turn right and jump to the next one. Turn right, jump and cap throw to the left. Dive, wall jump and open the chest with a cap throw. Then jump into the moon and try to grab it as high as possible. Cap dive, land on the platform, then long jump close to the edge. I don't have to tell you that this jump is scary. You have probably experienced that this can be a run killer, and with a PB of 105 or better, you're probably pretty consistent with this jump by now. What helps to make this easier though is turning the camera all the way to the right beforehand and then doing the cap dive early so the camera doesn't mess with you. Then cap throw and dive to the other side. You can also skip that cap throw if you're confident you will make it. Now simply roll to the exit. Getting to the next pylon cleanly is one of the most difficult things in the run. There's not much space and everything is going against you. And there also aren't many movement options that you can do there. So we're going for a strat that might be quite difficult for you, but even if you mess it up, you won't really lose time to slower alternatives. Spin pound, and once you hit the checkpoint flag, roll cancel to the right. It's similar to the roll cancel that you do for Flower Road, Skip and Wooded, so you want to keep your momentum out of it. If you did that correctly, Mario will be in a running state and you can run around the corner, jump and spin throw to capture the pylon. If you lose your momentum though, don't worry about it too much. Runners struggle with this part even to a very high level. Just jump and dive onto the stairs, then jump again and spin throw. Uncapture early once you reach the top and dive. Then simply tap the jump button and hold forward so you get a ledge grab on the next step. That way you will also trigger the cutscene and it is a little faster than jumping on top. Skip the cutscene and immediately start rolling to the right. Roll cancel to capture the tank and start aiming for the Wiggler. You're probably aware that you can control that in 2 ways. The obvious one is by using the right control stick. The other one is with motion controls. Even if the control stick might feel more natural, it's important you get used to the motion control method as it gives you access to way more precise adjustments in your aiming. So if you're still using the right stick, try to switch now and practice the other method. You can still use the control stick for bigger adjustments and looking around, but once you go into aiming mode, refrain from using it. In the first phase, the Wiggler consists of 9 segments. If you hit one of them, it destroys that segment and the 2 neighboring ones. So optimally, you only want to fire 3 shots hitting the 2nd, 5th and 8th segment. That's the fastest method and you should always try to aim the first 3 shots there. If you missed something, you can still go for the remaining ones afterwards. But by always having the same pattern for the first 3 shots, you will develop some nice muscle memory and eventually get more and more consistent at ending the first phase by only firing 3 times. Finally, just finish off the phase with 6 quick shots. For the part where the Wiggler moves around, we want to make sure it travels the shortest way possible to start the second phase as soon as possible. Move into this corner and wait until the Wiggler has passed you. Then move along the wall and wait in the next corner, which has a small gap. The Wiggler can get very close here, but as long as you stay inside the niche, it should not be able to hit you. For the final one, move to the right a little bit so you stand right in front of this pillar. This will make the Wiggler move to the correct wall for the second phase. Now you want to remember a few things. First of all, it's important that you get enough distance between you and the wall. You want to be able to reach the top of the wall when aiming all the way upwards with the tank. Now the Wiggler will shoot 5 fireballs at you. Pay attention to which one is the final one that spawns. It's important that you don't shoot that fireball, as that will cause the phase to end early, making it way easier to get a 3rd cycle. Still, you want to shoot as many of the remaining fireballs as possible, as they are blocking the Wiggler that you are trying to defeat. Also, they will try to hit you, which can cause time loss. So try to destroy 3 or even 4 of them. I personally like to destroy the 2nd, 3rd and 4th, as it's quite easy to avoid 1st and 5th just by moving around. Still, you want to make sure to switch to shooting the Wiggler shortly before it becomes vulnerable. Aim for its head, then just keep shooting in one spot repeatedly. You really don't want to adjust your aiming at all once you fired the first shot. Some Wiggler patterns can be really annoying as they overlap a few times, but for most of them, finding a good spot to aim for and then holding still while firing shots works really well. Also make sure to not shoot too fast, as having more than 2 fireballs in the air at the same time will cause the tank to overheat. Just try to get used to a rhythm where you can hit every 3rd segment. Once the Wiggler has fully moved through that spot, you've either hit all of the segments, or you can now aim for the remaining ones. Stay calm when going for parts you missed earlier. It's more important that you hit these shots now than doing them as fast as possible to save 1 or 2 seconds. Then finish the Wiggler off with some fast shots at the end. For the multi-moon, hold forward during the cutscene and keep spamming the jump and cap throw buttons. Then dive into Cappy to collect the moon. With stuff like City Hall and Wiggler, Night Metro is definitely not an easy split. I'd recommend going for at least a gold of 324 to reach our SOB goal. Looking for some strat upgrades? Wait a second, I got you.
When the time is right, then you should make a move. Hope it ain't taboo.
Next, for runners with a PB of 102 or 103 who are looking to improve their sum of best to around 101 flat. There won't be many new strats in this pace, so make sure you're familiar with the stuff from the previous pace. Once you made it to the top of the building after the awning jump, do a quick jump and dive, then initiate a triple jump. Aim towards the right of the building. Only tap the jump button for a small double jump, then do a full height triple jump. Cap dive, wall jump, cap throw and dive. Then turn right and long jump towards the moon like before. Now jump out of the Girder sandwich, cap dive and dive to the top. Now you want to instantly roll boost. That's why the angle of your dive is quite important here. If you dive too far left, you will bonk, and if you dive too far right, well, you just miss the top and fall down obviously. Getting used to the right angle can be a bit tricky, so make sure you get comfortable with it as well as the next part. Roll boost twice and off the edge. Now pay attention to where the Goomba is. You want to use him as a trampoline. Cap dive towards him, dive and bounce on him, then dive to the top. The timings here are important in order to have the right distance to land on the Goomba. Note that you have to wait a bit still after the roll animation ended, but then your cap dive can be quick. The timing of the final dive you can adjust a little bit depending on how close you are to the Goomba. I would recommend practicing this whole part from the Girder moon to the bounce for a while until you're consistent with all the timings and angles. You can definitely lose a bunch of time if you mess it up. After the bounce, roll boost twice and do a spin throw roll cancel to capture the pylon. Same goes for the start of the Wiggler fight. Replace the regular roll cancel with the spin throw one now. And that's it already for this pace. Not many changes, but in order to reach our target SOB, I still try to shave off a few seconds and go for a 320 gold. If you want to learn some more new movement of how to deal with certain Wiggler scenarios, stick around for the next bit.
Hurry up quick, El Jefe's coming soon. Sit up straight when she enters the room.
This pace is for people who are aiming for a SOB of around 59 flat, which makes sense with a PB of 100 or 101. There are a bunch of new things to learn in Night Metro at this level, starting with a relatively small change in the beginning. Try to add another roll boost here so you now do 4. This makes the triple jump pretty tight. Try to do small hops for the first 2 jumps so it works out. The next bits remain unchanged, but we're going to learn some faster movement before City Hall now. Insta-dive out of the pylon, then do 2 roll boosts towards here. Now spin through roll cancel and instantly jump and dive onto the Girder. This can be scary. Always make sure to roll cancel in time so you don't fall off. Now roll boost twice just to the left of the building. Time the second boost close to the edge so you roll boost over the railing. This can be scary as well. A lot of scary stuff, but the risk is worth the time save. Now boost towards the entrance and roll cancel into it. And what can I say, since you are into risky and scary stuff now, let's add Goomba to. By making your way to the platform and doing some Sharana bounces, you can save a little bit of time over the cycle you normally go for. It's not much considering all the movement you have to learn for it, but sooner or later you can't ignore the timesave from it. I'd say now is a good time to learn that trick. Also, I won't lie, it's just so much more satisfying to successfully do this than waiting for the platform. Start off with a spin pound and do a roll cancel jump. Keep your momentum into a triple jump and make sure you hold Cappy out for a while so you won't get a cap return jump instead of the triple. The triple jump should be close to this corner. All of this can be difficult to do as there are many precise inputs within a small time window. Note that there also is the possibility to make it to the platform without an RCJ, which looks like this. Still, most people prefer the other way, as the cycle is less tight and it's easier to deal with the mini Goombas. Overall, the RCJ way is less risky once you're comfortable with it, so I'd recommend learning that one. Cap dive, then do a spin throw and dive onto the platform. The spin throw is the biggest advantage for the RCJ as you won't have time to do it if you do just the triple jump. Now position yourself here facing the wall. Once the platform reaches the top, do a backflip into a Sharana bounce, wall jump, then cap throw and dive to the right. Immediately when you land, do another backflip and another Sharana bounce against the wall. This Sharana bounce can be very weird as Mario is in a 2.5D section due to the poles here, so the wall doesn't act like you would expect it to act. Try to get a feeling for the Sharana bounce by practicing it a ton. Once you dove into Cappy, you want to hold the stick to the left. Wait for Mario to turn towards the pole, then dive onto it and instantly turn to the wall. Goomba Hack is packed with movement and this includes a lot of precise things that can go wrong, such as the two Sharana bounces. The distance to the wall is really important here and can be adjusted a bit by the spots you do the backflips from. Figure out what works best for you and generally really try to be as consistent as possible with this trick before implementing it into your runs. It's a fun and cool looking trick, but won't help you if you miss it all the time. The cycle resets if you exit and re-enter the City Hall, so it's pretty easy to practice. Alright, after City Hall there isn't really a change, but it is definitely a good time to get consistent with the roll cancel around the corner now. Make sure to keep your momentum and capture the pylon with a spin throw. Also, at the top do an insta-dive out of the capture. Okay. At this point, I want to clarify that I'm just reading the script here, which happens to be written by the person who made an extensive Google sheet about Wiggler patterns. So don't blame me for the next part. Alright, here's what Lupus wrote. Wiggler is probably the most overlooked timesave by advanced players. Only few people understand how much time they lose to the Wiggler fight, especially the second phase. And from my experience, there are roughly 0 runners at a 100 or 101 who can claim they don't need to practice this fight. But make this decision yourself. Would you rather spend 1 hour to properly learn Goomba Hack, which saves like half a second, or spend 3 hours to learn the most important Wiggler patterns and save 4 or 5 seconds on the second phase? Yes, this doesn't go for every single pattern, but I see runners struggle even with some of the easier ones all the time, and banking on a good pattern is not a good strategy anyways. So take your time and learn how to at least deal with the difficult ones. It's really worth it, and believe it or not, Wiggler pattern practice was actually fun and even addicting when I did it. Note that I'm still reading Lupus's notes, I don't think it's fun, but sadly necessary. Of course, we can't go over all the patterns here, but we can cover what to pay attention for when learning them. There are 22 patterns and you can't force them unless you're used to practice mode. That's not that bad though, as recognition is also an important part. You can pause the game with screenshot mode once the Wiggler moves to the spot where it shoots the 5 fireballs from. Try to identify the 2 patterns that are possible from there. Then look up what is the best way to fight it. All of this can be found on the Wiggler sheet, which is linked in the description. It will help you to recognize the patterns and tell you where to shoot. It also color codes which patterns are especially important to learn. It doesn't really matter if you have a name for the patterns, it's just important that you get used to what to expect. Then go out of screenshot mode and try to finish off the Wiggler in the optimal way. There are usually 2 options for the execution on the sheet, one easier and one faster advanced version. You can decide for yourself which one you want to go for. Most of the time the advanced ones save time from having a few shots at the tail first. That saves time because of the animation when the Wiggler dies. The segments are being destroyed one after another, starting from the final one you hit. If you hit the ones in the middle last, then animation moves in both directions and is therefore done sooner. With tail shots first, you set that up. Tail shots are definitely recommended at a higher level, but not necessary here. Still, if you're already learning Wiggler, it doesn't really hurt giving them a shot. Pun intended. And this is pretty much the procedure you keep on repeating. Go into the fight over and over again and get used to the patterns. You will start recognizing them without pausing the game, and eventually you will recall how to execute all of them immediately. Second phase consistency is very underrated, as missing a single shot can often lose you multiple seconds. And it's so common to see that happen even for runners with a PB of 59 or lower. Alright, enough of Lupus's mission of trying to convince people to learn this fight. Back to a less biased script. For the multi-moon, now roll forward and do a motion control RCJ to collect it. A good visual cue for when to start moving is looking at the moon. Once it's off screen at the top, you can start rolling forward. This pace introduced a bunch of new stuff. A good goal for this level would be a 311. For the final optimizations offered in this video, check out the next part.
I'm human, I know when I fuck up, I'm feeling defiant. Salt in my wound, feel the burns from the tears that I'm crying. I'm human, I know.
Finally, let's have a look at what strats you can go for with a sub-hour PB and a target SOB of 58 flat. Actually, there is only one change compared to the previous pace, so give that a watch as well if you haven't. We are going to implement some faster movement for the awning jump now. As already said before, try to land on the awning close to the wall where it is higher. After the launch, we want to do a Girder bounce at the peak. In order to do that, it is important that you have the right distance from the wall. Naturally, you will be close after the bounce, so you have to hold back for a little bit before flicking the stick to the front again and doing the Girder bounce. It's definitely about getting a feeling for the right distance to the wall. There aren't really any visual cues I'm aware of. So, as always, practice it until you are feeling comfortable in your consistency. After the Girder bounce, you don't want to cap stall. Just do a wall jump and, once you're high enough, cap throw and dive on top while already aiming here to the right of the building. Long jump and do 2 small hops and a triple jump, then continue as usual. And that's already all the optimizations for this pace. But of course, let's go through all of Night Metro again and look at an invisible time save you might miss out on. Ask yourself the following questions. Do you take a good line towards the pylon? Do you do small vectors for this triple jump at the beginning? Do you aim your spin throw slightly right of the pylon to capture it as early as possible? Do you get as many roll boosts as possible when rolling towards the awning? Do you tighten up the inputs as much as possible when climbing up the wall? You have a lot of height already, so don't waste time on trying to gain too much of it. Also, make sure you dive in an angle which allows for a fast long jump afterwards. Do you take a good line towards the City Hall entrance and cut the corner closely with the roll cancel? For Goomba hack, do you do the Girder bounces as early as possible? There is no need to gain full height when climbing up. Do you dive out of the wire capture as early as possible? Do you time your shots well so you hit the Wiggler as early as possible? Do you know how to handle the patterns, and do you make use of tail shots when possible? When finishing off the Wiggler at the end of the phases, do you do that efficiently? Optimally, you want to have a fast rhythm without overheating and decrease the distance towards the Wiggler. So by shooting the first shot at a part of the Wiggler that's far away from you, and then changing your aim so the final shot hits the part that's closest to you, you will save some time. And finally, do you roll and up throw RCJ as early as possible to grab the multi-moon? Once you're paying attention to all of that, there isn't much you can improve in Night Metro, and a goal of 309 is definitely reasonable. And that's pretty much it for Night Metro. If you enjoyed the video, share it, drop us a like and subscribe for future episodes. Thanks as always to my team for making this series possible. ZackInTheBox edited this episode. Eden checked the script for mistakes, Flavien and Stealthz helped with recording clips, and Lupus wrote the script. I coordinated and helped with some of the other parts as well. I'm Danster and I'm gonna fix my sleep schedule now. See some sunlight and touch some grass. See you next time for change of pace for Day Metro.